He abandoned her when she was pregnant. Years later, he invited her to a gala, just to humiliate her in front of his world. But she didn't come alone. She walked in, holding the hand of an older woman in a wheelchair, a woman no one expected, and behind them, 3 teenage boys, tall, silent, unmistakably his. Marcus Callahan stood under chandeliers worth more than her life savings. His champagne glass slipped, shattered on marble. The crowd turned. Whispers froze mid-air. That woman in the chair? His mother, the same mother who once begged him not to leave Amara, and now she entered the room with the one he tried to erase. No words, just presence. Amara didn't look for pity. She brought truth, with a witness he couldn't silence. Not every woman returns for revenge. Some return with everything you were too weak to raise. If this hit you in the first 60 seconds, stay. Subscribe. It's only getting deeper. Before she was the woman who walked into that room, Amara Lewis was a literature teacher in Charleston. She didn't chase recognition. She taught for the quiet moments, when a student finally understood a line of poetry or found their voice in a sentence. Her classroom was small, a chalkboard with soft edges, paperbacks with worn covers stacked in every corner. She brought in her own books when funding ran out, brought extra lunch for the kids who never packed one. She knew their names, their silences. Amara lived alone. A simple apartment, one plant on the windowsill, and a teacup that never broke. She wasn't flashy, but when she spoke, people listened, because her words always carried something gentle, something earned. She believed stories could save people. Long before she had to write her own. She didn't plan on falling in love, especially not with a man like Marcus Callahan. But sometimes the most dangerous chapter starts with a soft sentence. They met in a quiet library corner. Amara had been tutoring his niece after school. The girl struggled with comprehension, but Amara had a way. Slow, kind, patient. Marcus stopped by once to pick her up. He watched from the hallway for 10 minutes before stepping in. He wasn't the billionaire then, just a man in a dark coat who asked too many questions about metaphors. He said he admired the way she made complex things feel human, said he hadn't read poetry since college but wanted to start again. He asked for a book recommendation, then another, then coffee. He was charming, but not loud, curious, but not pushy. She didn't fall fast, just gradually, like rain soaking into earth you didn't know was dry. They talked about Baldwin and grief, about music that didn't chart and cities that felt like home. It felt safe, until it wasn't. She told him in the quietest way she knew how. No drama, no demands, just truth, softly spoken across a dinner table they used to share. "I'm pregnant," she said. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't even blink. He set down his fork, folded his napkin, and asked, "Are you sure it's mine?" The room shifted. The warmth between them vanished like steam from a forgotten cup. She looked at him, waiting for a second question. A real one. It never came. Not, "How far along?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not even, "What do you need?" Just silence. And then, distance. That night she walked home slower than usual, not because she was tired, but because something inside her had cracked. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was recognition. The man who once praised her softness had no room for what it brought into the world. The next time they met, it wasn't in a cafe. It was in his office. The windows were high, the chairs were cold. He didn't ask how she was. Marcus slid a white envelope across the desk. "Take it," he said. "It'll cover everything." Inside, a check for $100,000. Her name spelled perfectly. The amount written without hesitation. Amara didn't touch it. He leaned back. "It's generous. Most men wouldn't offer half that." She met his eyes. "I didn't come for money." He shrugged, like that answer didn't fit the script. Then he pressed a button beneath the desk. A soft buzz. Footsteps approached. A security guard opened the door without knocking. Marcus didn't look at her again. "You're done here," he said. Amara stood, took nothing, and for the first time she understood what he valued. It wasn't her, and it never had been. The sky broke open as she stepped outside. Rain fell fast, sharp and cold, the kind that soaks you in seconds. Amara didn't run. She didn't cover her head. In her hand, the check. Crisp minutes ago, now soft at the edges, ink bleeding. She looked at it once more, then let it slip from her fingers. It landed in a shallow puddle, folding in on itself. She didn't look back. Her coat clung to her, Her shoes sank into the sidewalk with each step, but her spine stayed straight. No anger, no tears, just weight, quiet and full. At the corner, she stopped under the awning of a closed bookstore, closed her eyes, whispered only to herself, "I didn't come for money." It wasn't defiance, it wasn't pride, it was something deeper. The moment a woman realizes she'll carry more than a child. She'll carry herself. The email came at 6:42 a.m. No greeting, no warning, just one line in bold. "We regret to inform you that your contract will not be renewed." No reason, no explanation. Her classroom had test scores above state average. Parents trusted her. Students stayed late just to talk. But it didn't matter. She forwarded the email to the union rep. They replied with confusion, then silence. She called the principal. Straight to voicemail. That afternoon, she passed her replacement in the hallway. A younger woman with a bright smile. She didn't know yet. In the staff room, someone had left a box with Amara's name on it. No one made eye contact. She didn't need confirmation. She knew the reach Marcus had. Quiet reach, expensive reach, legal reach. Amara stood in the parking lot, her box against her chest. Not crying, not shocked, just learning. That power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it deletes. She applied everywhere. Public schools, bookstores, coffee shops, anywhere with a door and a "Help Wanted" sign, anywhere that didn't ask for more than she could give, but the rejections came fast. "We've filled the position. We're looking for long-term stability. You're just in a delicate place right now." Delicate meant pregnant. Pregnant meant inconvenient. Inconvenient meant no. One manager glanced at her stomach, then looked away. "Our team moves pretty fast. Maybe not the right fit." She smiled, thanked him, and walked out with her head high, then did it again and again. Each no stacked quietly on top of the last, not loud enough to scream, just heavy enough to sink. She kept her resumes folded in her purse, neat, clean, useless. By the fifth rejection, she stopped asking why. She knew. The world didn't want what she was carrying, in her body or in her name. The apartment wasn't perfect, peeling paint, slow pipes, no elevator, but it was safe and available. Amara met the landlord at noon. She brought her paperwork, references, deposit in hand. He smiled politely, nodded a lot, asked if she had steady income. "I'm between positions," she said, "but I have savings, and I'm expecting, so I need something soon." His smile faded just slightly. He looked at her belly, then back at the forms, then at the wall behind her. "We're really looking for someone more stable," he said. "No offense." She nodded. "I understand." She did. Perfectly. It wasn't her credit score, it wasn't her background check, it was her profile. Unmarried, unemployed, black, pregnant. He didn't slam a door in her face, he just never opened it. That kind of bias doesn't scream. It smiles, hands back your paperwork, and tells you good luck. She agreed to meet at a cafe on the quieter side of town. Marcus's mother arrived on time. Pearl earrings, perfect posture. The kind of presence that doesn't ask for space, it assumes it. She didn't order anything, just placed a gloved hand on the table and smiled. "I won't take much of your time," she said. Amara nodded, waiting. "I understand you're carrying a connection to my son," the woman said, choosing each word like glass. Amara stayed silent. "It's not personal. You seem lovely, but Marcus has a future, a very public one." Pause. Soft smile. "And our family has expectations." Another pause. "If you still care about him, don't force his name into a story it was never meant to be part of." She stood, smoothing her coat. "Let this be a quiet chapter," she added, "for everyone's sake." Then left. No threats, no insults, just a dismissal wrapped in silk. The walls were yellowed from moisture. The ceiling cracked in 2 places. A single bulb buzzed overhead, too dim to matter. Amara placed her bag down on the torn mattress. No closet, no curtains, just 4 thin walls and a lock that clicked twice. She sat at the edge of the bed, both hands resting on her stomach. The air smelled like old paint and cold metal. She closed her eyes, listened. No noise from neighbors yet, just her breath, just the quiet pulse of life growing inside her. She whispered, barely audible, "We'll start here." Not out of hope, not yet, but out of need. This wasn't the life she wanted, it wasn't the plan, but it was a floor, a roof, a start. Sometimes, rock bottom isn't the end. It's just the first place no one can take from you. The room was cold, the kind of cold that settles in your fingers. Amara lay still on the exam table, gel warm against her skin. The monitor blinked softly, rhythmic, reassuring. The doctor smiled gently, eyes scanning the screen, then paused. "Well," she said, turning the monitor slightly, "you're not having one." Click. A second heartbeat. Click again. A third. Triplets. No exclamation, no warning, just the word. Soft, final. Amara stared at the screen. 3 pulses, 3 lives, 3 futures tied to hers. She didn't speak, didn't move, just let the silence hold it all. Her eyes filled slowly, no sobbing, no sound. Only water rising where strength used to sit. The doctor handed her a tissue, said something kind. Amara nodded, but her voice stayed quiet. It wasn't joy, not yet. It was weight. 3 times heavier, 3 times harder to carry, and still, hers to carry alone. The lights were too bright. Everything moved fast. Hands, voices, machines. Amara's legs were numb, her breath uneven. A nurse gripped her hand and said, "We've got you. Just hold on." The contractions had come early. Too early. She heard one cry, then another, then a third. Sharp, small sounds that barely filled the room. Monitors beeped. Gloves snapped. The air smelled like metal and urgency. The doctors moved quickly. 3 tiny bodies. 3 blankets. 3 names not yet spoken out loud. They didn't lay them on her chest. They couldn't. Instead, they were lifted, one by one, into clear incubators. Rolled away beneath harsh light and soft prayers. Amara reached out but touched nothing. Her arms were empty, her body still, her eyes locked on the door they disappeared through, and in that moment, between silence and heartbeat, she didn't know if she had just become a mother, or if she had already lost them. She worked nights, early mornings, double shifts when someone called out, dishwasher at a diner, server at a bar, cleaner at a motel that never locked the back door. Her hands stayed raw, her shoes always damp. She kept extra napkins in her bag, not for spills, but to wipe formula off her shirt before the next shift. Sleep came in pieces, 20 minutes on the bus, 40 between feedings. No silence, no pause, just motion. She left post-it notes on the fridge, pump before work, call hospital billing, check on incubator temp logs. Sometimes she forgot to eat, but she never forgot a bottle, never missed a shift, never broke, not out of strength, out of survival. And she never asked for help, because she knew it wouldn't come. If you've ever seen someone carry a life they didn't create alone, how did they keep going? Let us know. Someone might need to read your answer. She was halfway through her shift when the manager pulled her aside. Didn't look angry, didn't look sorry either. "We've had a few customer complaints," he said, voice low, "about your appearance." She wiped her hands on her apron. "What about it?" He avoided her eyes. "They say it's distracting, that it makes the dining experience feel uncomfortable." She looked down at her stomach. 7 months along. Covered. Clean. He continued, "It's not personal. We just want to keep the atmosphere consistent." She nodded. Quiet. Calm. Then took off her apron, folded it neatly, set it on the counter. No argument, no tears, just another space where she no longer fit. The customers kept eating. The manager walked away. No one thanked her. No one noticed she left. But walking out didn't mean defeat. It meant she'd stopped shrinking herself just to make others feel comfortable. Have you ever seen someone be dismissed, just for existing? After the house finally settled, Amara sat at the kitchen table. The soft hum of the laptop filled the quiet night. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitant. Then, slowly, she began typing. The screen glowed against the dark walls, words and symbols forming a new language. She named it LightNest. It wasn't just code, it was a promise that knowledge could build a home, that learning could shelter those who had none. Her eyes flicked to the monitor, then to the sleeping forms of her boys in the next room. She thought of every moment she wished for better, more hope. That night, LightNest became more than a project. It became her lifeline, a way to rewrite the story, not just for her children, but for every child who felt forgotten. A knock came softly on the door one chilly evening. Amara opened it to see Mrs. Mildred, her elderly neighbor, holding a steaming bowl of soup. Her smile was warm, eyes full of quiet understanding. "You look like you could use this," she said gently. Amara invited her in, hands trembling as she accepted the gift. They sat together at the small kitchen table, sharing silence more than words. "I don't have much," Mrs. Mildred whispered, "but I believe in what you're building." Amara looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm building a school. For 3 babies who haven't even been born yet." Mrs. Mildred nodded. "They're lucky to have a mother like you." In that moment, hope wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a hand reaching out from the darkness, a reminder, even when the world turns away, someone still sees. Amara sent her pitch late one night, a simple email, no fancy attachments, just a story, a vision for LightNest, a learning platform for children like hers. Days passed, then the reply came. $5,000, and a mentor named Raymond. The message was brief but clear. "We believe in your idea. Let's help you grow it." Amara read the words again and again, disbelief mixing with hope. Raymond was a seasoned tech expert, a man who knew the world she dreamed of entering. For the first time in a long time, she felt a spark. Not a fire, not yet, but a spark that could ignite a new path. LightNest wasn't just her lifeline anymore. It was becoming something bigger, a chance to rewrite the future. One afternoon, an email appeared in Amara's inbox. From Marcus. Subject: "Heard about LightNest, coffee?" No explanation, no apology, just an invitation. She stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard but didn't move. She read it again, then closed the laptop. No reply. Not because she wanted to ignore him, but because she no longer needed to. The power had shifted. He was reaching out from a place he lost, and she was no longer waiting. LightNest was no longer just her fight. It was her voice. And silence, sometimes, says more than words ever could. The phone call came on a rainy afternoon. The principal's voice was low, careful. "Marcus Callahan was here today," she said. "He asked about your boys." Amara's heart tightened. She had hoped he'd stayed away. "He didn't give a reason," the principal continued. "But we told him no information without your permission." Amara thanked her and hung up. She sat back, trying to steady her breath. The past wasn't done. Marcus was resurfacing, quiet but present, watching from the edges, a shadow she couldn't ignore. She looked at the photo on her desk, 3 small faces smiling back at her. She whispered, "They won't be caught off guard," because this time she was ready. Amara sat at the lawyer's office, pen in hand. Paper after paper lay before her. Custody agreements, privacy waivers, school records. She signed each one carefully, making sure no loophole remained. Changing phone numbers, updating emergency contacts, locking down every detail. She wasn't just protecting herself anymore. She was shielding her boys from a world that had tried to take them away. The lawyer nodded. "You've done everything possible." Amara didn't smile. She didn't need to. She felt a fierce calm, a warrior ready to defend her family at every turn. Outside, the sun broke through gray clouds. Inside, a mother took control of a story she refused to lose. For the first time in a long time, she believed she could protect them, not just from others, but from the silence she once felt inside herself. The invitation came on a crisp autumn morning. An official letter, embossed and formal. Keynote speaker, National Education Conference. Amara held the paper with trembling hands. Raymond, her mentor, smiled when she told him. "No one can tell this story better than the one who lived it," he said quietly. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't just about LightNest anymore. It was about every step, every struggle, every quiet victory. Standing on that stage meant more than success. It meant claiming her truth, owning her journey. That night, she rehearsed her speech in a small, dim room, her voice steady, her heart full. She was ready to show the world what true strength looks like, not just surviving, but rising. The spotlight was warm, but the room was still. Amara stepped forward, calm and clear. She looked out at hundreds of faces, some skeptical, some hopeful. Then she spoke, voice steady and sure. "I didn't come here because someone chose me. I came here because I chose myself." A pause. The words hung in the air like a promise. No one's approval can write your story. No one's permission can define your worth. She shared the nights she stayed awake, the tears she never showed, and the love that kept her moving forward. When she finished, the room erupted, not in noise, but in respect. She wasn't just a speaker, she was a voice, a force, and she had claimed her place. Marcus sat in the front row, eyes fixed on Amara. When the applause died down, he stood, steady, confident. He took a step forward, ready to speak. Amara met his gaze without flinching. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Tell them," she said, "if they want to hear." The room held its breath. Marcus looked away, uncertain. No anger, no pleading, just a silent acknowledgement. She turned back to the audience. The moment wasn't for him anymore. It belonged to her boys, to the children who had grown without his words. Her eyes shone with quiet strength. Some stories don't need closure. They need respect. And that was enough. One evening, after the boys were tucked into bed, the questions came softly. "If we don't want to see him," Caleb asked, "will you be sad, Mom?" Amara sat beside their beds, looking at each of their faces in the dim light. Her voice was steady. "No, because this choice is yours." Micah nodded slowly. "We have the right to choose." Elijah added, "We don't have to forgive if we're not ready." She smiled gently. "Exactly. Love doesn't mean forgetting. It means knowing your worth." They lay back on their pillows, comforted. For the first time, the power wasn't hers alone. It belonged to the three boys, her reason to keep going. And in that moment, she passed on more than love. She passed on the strength to choose. The courtroom was quiet, heavy with meaning. Three boys sat at the long table, pens in hand. The judge looked down at the papers. "This is a significant decision," she said gently. "Changing your last name from Callahan to Lewis." Micah, Elijah, and Caleb glanced at each other, then signed. One by one, their names shifted. The name Marcus left behind. The name Amara built. It wasn't just ink on paper, it was a declaration, a rewriting of legacy, a claim on identity. As they rose, Amara squeezed each boy's hand. They walked out not as shadows of the past, but as architects of their own future. The name they chose was more than hers. It was theirs, together. Marcus waited quietly in the city library's small conference room. The three boys entered together, each with a different look on his face. No smiles, no hugs, no words of welcome. They sat down, spaced apart, like strangers at a meeting neither wanted. Marcus searched their eyes, hoping for something. Connection, forgiveness, anything. But found only silence. Caleb glanced up, curious but cautious. Elijah avoided eye contact. Micah gripped his brother's hand. Marcus spoke softly, "Thank you for coming." No one replied. The minutes stretched heavy, filled with unspoken truths. No anger, no hate, just an empty space between what was lost and what never was. When the meeting ended, the boys stood and left together. Marcus remained, alone with his regrets. Sometimes the hardest meeting isn't about reconciliation. It's about accepting what can never be fixed. Amara stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm against her skin. She held the award carefully, but didn't read from the paper in her hand. Instead, she looked out at the crowd and spoke from the heart. "I was once told I wasn't enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough." She paused, letting the words settle. "But I'm still here, still standing, still living." The room grew quiet, every eye fixed on her. This award isn't just mine, it's for every person who was overlooked, underestimated, or forgotten. She smiled softly, eyes shining. "We don't always get to choose our start, but we always choose how we continue." The applause came slow, then grew loud, not just for a winner, but for a survivor, for a story of hope, resilience, and quiet strength. Back in her quiet room, Amara opened an old notebook. The pages were worn, filled with thoughts written in haste and hope. She picked up her pen and paused, then wrote slowly, deliberately. "I didn't start with a dream. I started with fear." Her hand trembled just a little. Those words held everything: pain, doubt, and the fierce will to keep moving forward. She looked up from the page, eyes soft but steady. It was a full-circle moment, from fear to courage, from silence to voice. Not an ending, but a new beginning. Because sometimes, the hardest truth is the strongest foundation, and she was ready to build. Morning light filtered softly through the window. Amara brewed tea in the quiet kitchen, the steam rising gently. In the next room, her three boys sat at the table, focused on their homework. Their laughter and whispered questions filled the space. She watched them, a calm smile on her face. A voiceover spoke, warm and steady. If you've ever been overlooked, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, remember this: you have the power to choose yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to join a community that believes in rising together. Because every story deserves to be seen, and every voice deserves to be heard.